Chapter 13. The birds are singing, the bells are ringing, the wild deer come galloping by. Someone's coming, said Peter sharply. Get on quick. It sounds as if one of them's beating the wood to flush us out, while the other. No, said Mary. Tib's purring. And look, the little broomstick hasn't moved. Keep still and listen. They waited, quite still, their eyes on the darkness of the deep wood. The rustling grew louder. It was not one person, but a crowd of people or creatures approaching softly through the thick undergrowth. Ferns swished and the dew shook down. All the scents of the wood came floating, larch and bramble flowers and late honeysuckle, and the dark smoky scent of ivy. Then the bushes parted, and into the dim starlight, the dew shining on antlers and burnished coat, stepped a big, beautiful stag. After him, delicately, trooped a score of dappled deer. Tib gave a queer, gobbling cry, deep in his throat, the cry Mary had last heard in the dreadful strongroom. On Peter's shoulder, the grey cat mewed softly, and began to purr. It's the deer that were enchanted, said Mary excitedly. I freed them with the master spell. Perhaps they've come to help us. The stag paced forward, stretching his splendid head towards her. He snuffed twice at her, a Tib on her shoulder, then turned to look at Peter, ears pricked. Peter's my friend, said Mary quickly. He came to rescue Gib. The great stag reached forward to snuff at Peter's chest, then he wheeled, trotted forward to the fence that edged the wood and stood there, his magnificent head high, looking back at them over his shoulder. I remember him, said Mary. He was that poor creature covered with mangy fur. Madam laughed at him and prodded him. I'm sure he's come to help us. But how? What can he do? He wants us to go that way, said Peter. Come along. But Mary hung back. I don't see how we can. Listen, you can still hear those two overhead. The other deer were all around them now, crowding close. Peter laughed, pointing to the tossing heads and bright liquid eyes. It's a convoy. He sounded quite cheerful and confident. Don't you see? If we break out of the wood in the middle of that lot, Madam and the doctor certainly can't get at us, even if they see us, and they might miss us completely among all the running shadows. Come along. It's our best chance. Do you really think, began Mary doubtfully, but was stopped by the little broomstick. It could hardly be said to be tossing its head and pawing the ground, but the effect was the same. It pranced in her hands, obviously excited, and willing them to go. All right, she said, and jumped on. Hang on then, Tib. Jump for it, Peter, or the little broomstick'll be away with me. Peter jumped astride the broomstick, and held on. The cats clung tightly, both purring now like racing engines. Round them the deer leaped and frolicked, their delicate hoofs hardly printing the ground, and with them the little broomstick skipped, frisking. The great stag threw his head up, snuffed the air, then, from a standstill, leaped the fence and trotted out into the starlight. After him streamed the deer, and among them, a shadow among their leaping shadows, ran the little broomstick, smoothly over the fence, over the ditch, out into the open field. Then all at once they were galloping, the deer traveling in long, fluid leaps all around them. Antlers tossed, eyes shone wide and dark in the starlight, white tails scudded ahead, dainty hoofs pattered on turf like rain. The dew-laden coats brushed the children's legs, and under them the grassy meadow flashed by as effortless. The herd raced as silently as their own shadows down the long slope towards the stream. A hedge showed, briefly, and was gone under them as if it had been no more than a stand of thistles. The stream, shining and noisy, flashed under them and fled back into silence. A stone wall loomed, and the little broomstick, gathering itself, flung itself and its load up and over as the deer soared and sank like a great wave breaking, and the race went on. Then suddenly the birds were with them too. A peewit tumbled screaming out of the dark, then a flight of swallows, with a high shrilling noise, then blackbirds, thrushes, pigeons, sparrows, all the birds fresh from those dreadful cages, birds who should have been asleep, head under wing, but who flew now with a herd of deer to hide the escaping children from the danger above them, for the danger was there. For the first few minutes, it seemed, Madam and the doctor had assumed that the stream of shadows breaking at a gallop from the wood was only a wild herd of deer, but they must have decided to make sure, for now one broomstick turned quickly in pursuit. The other still circled sentinel above the trap of trees. It was Dr. D who was coming. There was the dreadful, familiar swish of his broomstick overhead, then the sudden fierce swoop, which scattered the birds in all directions, and the yell of anger and triumph. "Madam! Madam! Here! This way!" Then with the white wand brandished in his hand like a whip, Dr. D was swooping down among the birds, scattering them to right and left as he tried to reach the children in the middle of the racing herd. But the herd defeated him. Each time the wand whipped down it struck some tossing antler, and the green sparks flew and flashed, but still the deer fled on unharmed. They were not afraid. He could not enchant them again. They only bunched more closely round the children, and raced on. The wizard whipped at them with the powerless wand, and the green fire ran along their coats like water. Mary saw, then, that all the animals nearest to them were the stags, all armed with antlers. Once, when the wand flashed down near her head, a pair of antlers caught and parried it with a crack and blaze like lightning, and the wizard gave a cry as if he had had a shock. After that he withdrew to a height of perhaps 20 feet, and once again the birds closed in. But not just defending now, this time they attacked. And they too were immune to the strokes of the white wand. They were all too small to damage Dr. D himself. The biggest were the pigeons, but it is not easy to fly straight through a flock of wheeling, darting, furious birds, who think nothing of flying straight into one's face, or hitting out with passing claws at one's head, or simply blinding one by flying round and round in flocks at the level of one's eyes. And the doctor's broomstick didn't like it either. It swerved and bucked and tried to jib, while the doctor, hanging on with one hand and swiping blindly round him with the wand in the other, came once or twice very near to falling off, but not quite. And as mile after swift mile went by, Mary and Peter could see that the deer were beginning to tire, and above Dr. D, still fresh, and too clever to come down into the swirl of birds and defending antlers, sailed Madam Mumblechook. They were on a slope now, a long slope running downhill. Here and there were tufts of rushes. They brushed the bellies of the running deer and swished past the children's feet. Beside them now on the right, was the bright rush and noise of water. A river. A swift river, rushing down through stony rapids and over steep, white falls. Then suddenly, about a quarter of a mile away, at the foot of the long slope, they saw what seemed to be a wide stretch of water. The sea, thought Mary, and for the first time felt despair. If they had to cross a sea, without the deer, with perhaps only the frail help of the birds, and if the little broomstick tired. "It's the mist," cried Peter. "I told you I got lost in it on the way here. If we get through that, we'll know the way home." On down the slope, with the drumming of the tiny hoofs all round them, now she could see. It was indeed the mist, a great, white lake of mist, thick and rolling like cloud. The starlight was bright on the surface of it. The river rushed and cascaded right into it and was lost, as if there really was a sea or a lake below. But at least, once in the shelter of that thick cloud, they would need no escort, no cover. They could run at the broomstick's own pace, safe and shrouded, till perhaps on the other side they would see the familiar, yellow lights of home. The cloud of birds was already wheeling, ghostly, in and out of the edges of the mist. The herd went down the last slope with a slither and scatter of turf, then slowed, trotted, stopped on the long stony strand where the river met the mist. The big stag turned, the vapor swirling round his shoulders like cloud. The herd parted to let the children through into the safe shelter of the mist. Then with a yell and a last, desperate swoop, Dr. D dived on them like a stone falling. He almost reached them, but the great stag leaped clear into the air, straight over their heads, and his antlers struck the wizard's wand clean out of his hand. The wand flew wide. It struck the surface of the river. There was a hiss like steam as the green fire ran to and fro across the water. Then a flash, a crack, a spurt of white smoke, and the wand vanished into the swirling river. Behind the children was another crack, a flurry, then a crash. Past Mary's cheek went the broken half of a broom handle, and a scatter of birch twigs. Then everything dimmed and vanished, stag, deer, birds, starlight all blotted out as their own little broomstick, undamaged, plunged forward with them into the cloud of mist.